Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, the Champions League is truly at full sway. The league phase just ended, and now we've got the playoffs to worry about. For those that do not know, the top 8 clubs in the league standings automatically qualify to the round of 16. However, all the teams that finish 9th to 24th go through an additional playoff round, and where they finished on the table essentially determine who they would potentially face. A final draw has just been conducted, and these are all the matchups that will be happening. The best looking match on paper for sure is Real Madrid versus Manchester City. It's really a guaranteed Champions League clash at this point. This is the 4th season in a row these clubs will be facing one another. Regardless, it's insane to think that one of them will be knocked out this early in the competition. Today, of course, I'll be sharing with you all my predictions on what will happen in this playoff round, but as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this video gets 3,500 likes, I'll make sure to do the same thing for the Europa League as well. So don't forget to show some love and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Let's kick things off with Club Brugge versus Atalanta. I've been heavily praising the Europa League champions in all my recent prediction videos, as they have really evolved to become one of the biggest threats in Europe. Gasperini made this side better and better, it seems. Still in the race for the Scudetto, with their attack flourishing. Retegui their top goal scorer right now, and Lookman producing so much quality. However, unfortunately at the time of this recording, he will most likely miss both legs of this Champions League clash as he picked up an injury. However, injuries have been an issue for this club throughout the season, and they've clearly been adapting no problem. Some of their highest profile center backs were injured for the majority of the season, for example Scalvini, and they still utilize their other options wonderfully. And even with Lookman, he was out for their final league phase fixture against Barcelona, and they still managed to draw the match 2-2. It was unfortunate that they could not grab 3 points there though, as they finished in the league phase standings just outside the top 8. 9th place, the highest possible team to be in the playoffs, while Club Brugge achieved the lowest possible position to still remain in the knockout phase of the Champions League. 24th place, sharing points with Manchester City, Sporting, and even 25th place who unfortunately got eliminated, Dinamo Zagreb. They really got to stay by the finest of margins as they faced Manchester City on that final match day. That match was unfortunately significant for the club, as they were 20 matches unbeaten prior to that loss. So obviously, they are not to be messed with, despite barely making it in the first place. They had a slow start but built themselves up and defeated many clubs in the Champions League that people regarded highly. Sporting, Aston Villa, even held off Juventus for a draw, but who hasn't done that these days? Fortunately, they lost one of their key players, Skov Olsen, over the January transfer window, who went to Wolfsburg. But their other forwards can all be instrumental for a fixture like this. The Greek winger Tsolis, Nielsen, and the veteran Hans Van Aken in attacking midfield. It's really a 50-50 matchup, I'd say. Most people will probably lean towards Atalanta to do the job, but we cannot act like Club Brugge have not proven their worth lately. Also, we seeded tournaments many times in the first round of knockouts, where a club who does worse in the groups excels over the club that outperformed in that same stage. This one truly goes either way for me, but I am leaning towards Atalanta to get the job done, even if they cannot rely on Lookman. First leg is 1-1 when Brugge play at home, but in the second, I'm saying that Atalanta are able to secure a 2-1 victory and advance to the round of 16. Moving on now to Sporting versus Dortmund. Man, what a clash this is, and honestly could have been if it was played earlier in the season. Cannot help but feel that in recent times, both these clubs have dropped in form. Sporting were flying unbelievable heights with Amorim at the helm. They were fighting for an automatic spot to the round of 16, even in the Champions League. Their last beautiful memory in the campaign was one of his final matches in charge against Manchester City, where they embarrassed the 4th time in a row Premier League winners 4-1. But after that, they did not get a single win in the Champions League and barely hung on to a playoff spot. They were in some sense lucky to draw with Bologna at the end. They also struggled domestically for some time, but after once again rotating managers around though, they have been doing well once again under Rui Borges. Victor Gyökeres is also getting very solid numbers of course, but unfortunately picked up an injury. Him, along with some other key players like Gonçalves, have unknown return dates. Like I said, Dortmund also haven't been entirely brilliant in recent times. Much lower than they should be in the Bundesliga first of all, and they also had a drop off from the top 8 race in the Champions League. Not as severe as Sporting downfall, but a loss to Bologna set them back massively. That loss in particular was also the final straw for their manager Šahin. He was sacked immediately after. Now after some time, they finally decided who they will go with, the Croatian Niko Kovac, who used to take charge of Bayern and Wolfsburg as well. Time will tell how he does. Of course I wish him the best though. And still, despite the shortcomings from Dortmund, there are still some positives. One of the biggest is how Guirassy is currently the top joint goal scorer with Lewandowski. Their injury letdown though goes to Sule, who's expected to return just after this Champions League clash. Another matchup of course where anything's possible. I don't think there will be a clear winner here. However, unfortunately I think Sporting have shown more shortcomings as of late, while Dortmund have shown some more signs that they do have a chance of revival. New management who will of course be under a lot of pressure. For a club that reached the final of the Champions League last season, I think they have what it takes to advance to the round of 16. I'll say the first leg finishes 1-1 in Lisbon and then 2-0 for Dortmund in the second. Let's get the big one out of the way now. Manchester City versus Real Madrid. Like I said, we've seen this fixture occur so much in recent times, but it is always a thriller. I think no one's complaining here. It's just mind-blowing that one of them will be knocked out so soon, like I said. Well, I guess not really actually when you consider how poor Manchester City have been recently. I think they have been returning to themselves, but that Rodri injury really seemed to shake them. A mess in so many matches. For 12 matches or so, they failed to get a single win. That's something Pep Guardiola has never experienced in his career. He really waited until the final Champions League match day to secure a spot in the playoffs. No one really expected them to be in this position. Many, like me, probably expected them to finish in the top 8. But with them losing to PSG not too long ago, blowing a 2-0 lead there, blowing a 3-0 lead to Feyenoord as well, I wouldn't say they are the favorites going into this fixture. However, form is temporary. They could be in full swing by the time this matchup comes around as well, as they have an incredible squad on paper still, and the matchup between them and Real Madrid is very even head-to-head. In terms of the record, City are actually ahead in wins with 4 against Madrid's 3. Both have also drawn 5 times. When they faced each other last season, both legs finished in a draw, and Madrid advanced to the semi-finals on penalties. A season before then, City clapped Madrid 4-0 in the second leg at the Etihad. And in 2022, we saw one of the craziest semi-finals in UCL history. Real Madrid advanced 6-5 on aggregate, with Madrid scoring all their goals at or after the 90-minute mark in the second leg. Real Madrid as well currently have arguably had their flaws. Many also expected them to finish top 8 in this league phase. However, they failed to click at times, suffering some shocking defeats this season, but now things are starting to go their way once again. Top of La Liga by quite the margin over Barcelona, who got the best of them this season, and Mbappe seems to be on a roll right now as well. Defensively though, Real Madrid will have a lot of players missing, and we'll have to rely on Asensio and Vallejo in the center back department. I said it before and I'll say it again. Previously, in some matches where they did secure 3 points, they really were not necessarily the most convincing team. Even in this Champions League, they relied on clutch moments. The 2 fixtures in the Champions League that exemplify this are against Stuttgart and Atalanta. But that is the identity of Real Madrid. Even in Champions League campaigns in the past, with poor moments throughout the match, they always seem to find a way to win, and they'll do whatever it takes to do so. That type of play serves them very well in the Champions League as well, and I think they have more of a foundation of form right now to handle the poorest Manchester City we have seen in quite some time. I think it will go back and forth like it has in the past though. First leg at the Etihad, City feel confident and get a 2-1 victory. However, in the second, Real Madrid went 3-1 and they're the ones to advance to the round of 16, while Manchester City have this insanely early Champions League exit. Moving on out of Celtic versus Bayern. There is a heavy favorite on paper in this matchup, unfortunately. However, if Celtic properly prepare, maybe they can pull some kind of surprise. They already got knocked down hard in this Champions League campaign by Borussia Dortmund. Despite having incredible moments throughout the beginning of the season, they got humiliated traveling to Germany, losing 7-1. However, it seemed like they learned a lot in that match. They went on to embarrass a different Bundesliga club a few match days later, and also held off draws to informed teams like Club Brugge, who have been undefeated for some time until coming up against Manchester City, and Europa League winners Atalanta. They finished the Champions League campaign with 3 wins, 3 draws, and 2 losses. Their only other defeat was to Aston Villa, but they finished above a Premier League champion in the standings, Manchester City. Now, unfortunately, the club just lost their top goal scorer this season over the January transfer window, Kyogo Furuhashi, but their beloved Jota has returned to the club after collecting a solid paycheck in Saudi Arabia and a small stint at Rennes. Also, Ida's a solid attacker. He's been proving his worth loads and even scored twice against Aston Villa recently, despite the defeat. This club are excelling domestically at the top of the league by quite a difference on points. It's a genuine shame that they have to face such a top club this soon in the knockouts, as this seemed like the perfect year for them to maybe have some kind of underdog run in the Champions League. Obviously, it's still possible, but playing Bayern over 2 legs this early in the Champions League is a nightmare for any team. Now, Bayern have underwhelmed for their standards in the Champions League. Finished 12th place when they seemed destined to secure top 8 and not even be in this playoff scenario in the first place. Especially after that match against Dinamo Zagreb where they scored 9 goals, setting records for the highest scoring defeat in the tournament. It followed with some blunders, losing to Aston Villa and even 4-1 to Barcelona, a top club, but one they usually get the best of in recent times. Towards the end of the campaign, they couldn't even break down an inconsistent Feyenoord, losing 3-0 there, despite having many match stats going in their favor. Regardless, overall the club has been turning up. Domestically, they are top of the Bundesliga. Harry Kane is still proving to be one of the best forwards in the world. Loads of depth in the winger department. Bayern are still such a scary team to face no matter the form they're in. Now, if this were just a one-leg affair, I would have more faith in Celtic to pull off the upset. There is definitely a chance for Bayern to get halted when they travel to Scotland, but with this matchup obviously being played over 2 legs, I just cannot see Bayern falling short here, especially this early. Yes, they have been a bit underwhelming in the Champions League, but now they definitely have a doable opponent for the playoffs. I see them going to the round of 16 with probably no problem. In the first leg, Celtic might keep it narrow. I'll go for a 1-0 victory for Bayern there, playing away. But in the second leg, Bayern will win 4-1, I reckon. Maybe I am shooting a bit too high here. Best of luck to Celtic. I truly would love to see an upset happen. We move on out of Feyenoord versus Milan, and this one might be the toughest one to call in my opinion. That's because Feyenoord have been the most unpredictable, inconsistent club in this Champions League campaign so far. They give Salzburg one of the worst performances performing teams in the Champions League their only win, but they defeat one of the best teams in the competition, Bayern, 3-0. They also scored 3 goals against City, 3 against Benfica, but then concede 6 to Lille on the final match day. A match where if they won, they would not be in this position in the first place. What an interesting season the Dutch club have had though. They're definitely bringing a lot of spice to the Champions League. We saw some cool tales like the rise of Algeria and Moussa burst into the scene, to Santiago Jimenez giving this club infinite memories. So I actually did record this video before Jimenez made that perfectly timed transfer. I mean, you cannot make that one up. However, I do think this will impact Feyenoord heavily, negatively, in this fixture. Milan taking one of their most valuable assets, adding it to their striker department, is not a good look. I love the chaos they bring, and they definitely can take advantage of a Milan who's been inconsistent themselves. Yup, they're able to defeat the likes of Madrid at the Santiago Bernabeu, looking to qualify for the top 8 leading up to the final match day. Surprisingly, that was one of their biggest wins as well score-wise. 2 close encounters with the likes of Girona, Crvena Zvezda, and even Slovan Bratislava, only winning by just 1 goal each of those teams who got automatically eliminated. Anyway, all they had to do was defeat Dinamo Zagreb at the end, but they failed to do so, which is why they're here. Moussa getting a red card in that match, by the way, meaning he'll be banned in the first fixture. Some great individual performance here without a doubt. Christian Pulisic, the perfect example. Rafael Leao, Reiners. To me, neither of these clubs are to be fully trusted. However, Feyenoord will at least be grateful that they're not playing another club in the Serie A, Roma. They for sure have what it takes to catch Milan off guard. As yes, this club just won the Supercoppa Italiana final over Inter, but even in the Serie A, a lot of their matches are cut too close. It's a flip of a coin who's going to show their flaws here. Man, Feyenoord losing 6-1 to Lille really has me questioning the entire matrix of the football world. I know they had some injuries in that match, but still, it's a heavy scoreline defeat. I want to say they have what it takes here, but this one looks like a comeback scenario. They'll win the first leg 3-2, and then Milan will win the second leg 2-1. Tied on aggregate, going to penalties, Milan will win the shootout at the San Siro, allowing them to advance to the next round. Now, this is not the only Italian and Dutch club partner. We also have Juventus taking on PSV. This was actually the first match of the season, where Juventus defeated PSV 3-1, where we saw Kenan Yildiz get the Del Piero-esque type of goal. However, that was much earlier on into the season, where Juventus were not getting draws back to back to back to back to back. Yes, too many underwhelming draws in the Champions League and the Serie A follow. Thiago Motta's promising rise suddenly was questioned by many. They have had many more draws in the Serie A compared to wins. Them getting defeated to Benfica on the final match day for the 3rd time in a row over the past few years puts them all the way to 20th place, while PSV finished 14th with just 2 more points. PSV got a lot of clutch wins, 3 matches finishing with a 3-2 scoreline. Only 1 match was an outshine against Girona 4-0. I think this club show their class and quality domestically, but still sometimes internationally, it seems like they lose their grip, at least offensively. Attacking wise, they're great though, proving themselves time and time again. They scored a lot of goals in the Champions League, but only kept 1 clean sheet against Girona. So it all depends. Can Pit the Bros' hectic yet powerful tactics in the attack throw off Juventus this time? The fact that they already played each other already, he might know how to handle them this time around, especially with this matchup being played over 2 legs. That being said, Juventus was not the only club they slipped to in the Champions League. They also lost to a club that made their debut in the Champions League, Brest. The American Ricardo Pepi is on fire though, along with veteran Luke de Jong. Juventus should be able to handle this team. They've already proven it. However, something tells me things won't work this time around. Vlahovic still has solid numbers this season, but still randomly goes missing. Colomwani though has been a superb signing for them. He's been off to a brilliant start, 3 Serie A goals in 2 matches. If he keeps it up, he could be the answer to many of Juventus' previous attacking problems. I genuinely could see one of these fixtures finishing in a draw. Maybe in the first leg we'll see 1-1, but then in the second, PSV might be able to handle Juventus, getting that absurd 3-2 victory scoreline that they love in the Champions League. I'm gonna go for it, with Juventus being upset this early on in the CL. I'm pretty sure most of you will predict both Italian clubs to advance, but this will be my quote-unquote upset for the playoff fixtures. Moving on to PSG versus Brest. This one, I'm sorry guys, I will have to be brief on. I would truly love to see an upset here. Brest have told a phenomenal story so far in the Champions League. Their first ever time playing in the Champions League, they have made it to the knockouts. It is slightly underwhelming that they do have to face PSG this soon, another French club that they have already seen recently. Both times they faced each other in 2021, it finished with a 3-1 scoreline PSG's way. Not to mention, PSG could not be happier with this draw. They sometimes struggle against other countries in Europe, but domestically, they always impress. They are currently top of their league by a very fine margin. This will feel like another Ligue 1 fixture for them. And even my comment about them struggling with other European teams, that feels incorrect at the moment because they just scored 4 past Manchester City. PSG should be able to handle this fixture with absolute ease. I truly hope this prediction ages like milk, but I'm saying in the first leg it finishes 3-0, and then in the second, PSG win 3-1. 6-1 on aggregate, I believe. Brest, despite having every reason to be prideful for making it this far, I'm sorry to say that their Champions League schedule was honestly not too difficult, at least compared to others. I'm sorry, we all love you, Brest. We move on to the final match of this playoff phase now, Monaco versus Benfica. A match that already occurred during this league phase. They played in Monaco. Benfica won in a 3-2 thriller. A comeback win as well with 2 late goals. It was not Benfica's only thrilling encounter recently though. They have scored a lot of goals against many big clubs in this competition. Earlier they scored 4 against Atletico, then they scored 4 against Barcelona but still lost, Palvidis getting a hat-trick in that match, and just defeated their recent punching bag Juventus 2-0. Monaco, unlike Benfica, were able to defeat Barcelona, but that was early on in the Champions League, and many thanks to an early red card for their opposition. Sometimes the club has had exciting moments in the competition, but when they faced some of the big dogs like Arsenal and Inter, they were put in their place, losing 3-0. Still, some great individuals in that team that allow them to gel. One of my favorite examples is the Senegalese midfielder Kamara, and although Embolo might not have the craziest goal-scoring tally, he still puts his name out there in decisive moments. But Benfica's attack is true class. Greece and Turkey uniting up top with Artukoglu and Palvidis to the experienced Di Maria. Both these clubs in regards to the league standings finished with the same exact amount of points, by the way. I should have mentioned that earlier, but internationally, they are in identical form. However, with Benfica already proving themselves against them recently, to them scoring loads of goals against a lot of tough opposition, I think they have what it takes to advance to the round of 16 over Monaco. I'll say both legs go Benfica's way, but it will be tight. The first leg finishing 3-2, and in the second, 2-1. So here are all the teams I have advancing to the round of 16 of the Champions League. Who do you reckon will be the ones to do so though? Like I said, let me know down below, and don't forget to leave a like if you want to see me do this same video for the Europa League playoffs. Anyway, thank you all so much for making it to the end. I will see you all very, very soon. Take care. La cu noci.